Hello, my name is Tom Deerdorf. I'm the Executive Director of the Polk Transportation Planning Organization, or TPO. And on behalf of the TPO, I'd like to welcome you to our community forum on SunTrax. I wanted to, first of all, thank our guest speaker today, Mr. Paul Satchfield, for agreeing to give us our presentation and our update this afternoon. And I wanted to just say real quickly that this is a very timely update for us because the Polk TPO is just at the beginning stages of updating our long-range transportation plan to the year 2045. If you think about it, we're trying to, over the next 2 years, try to figure out how people are going to be traveling in the year 2045, which is a chore in and of itself. But today's presentation will be very helpful because a lot of the things that will be tested at the SunTrax facility will become our reality over the next 20+ years. A couple of housekeeping items. First of all, in the back of the room we have a cooler with water, we have some cookies, and whatever doesn't get consumed here we have to take back to Bartow, so we would encourage you to take advantage of the refreshments. Restrooms are on the other side of the lobby. And the last thing I wanted to mention before I provide our speaker's bio is that in this room at 3 o'clock we actually have a separate meeting, which is a meeting of our stakeholders group for our 2045 investment strategy. I mentioned that we are updating our long-range transportation plan to the year 2045. This stakeholders group is going to be looking at how we need to invest in emerging transportation technologies as we try to meet travel demands of the future. That meeting is a public meeting. It will be in this room at 3 o'clock. We'll kind of reset up the room, but if you have the time and you have an interest, you're welcome to stay for that second meeting. But with that, I'll go ahead and provide our speaker's bio. Paul Satchfield has served at Florida's Turnpike Enterprise since 2003 and has been the Program Management Administrator since 2013. In this role, Paul oversees a staff of over 30, including 15 project managers who are responsible for delivering all of the Turnpike's projects from concept to construction. Over the next 5 years, the Turnpike will deliver approximately $3.8 billion worth of construction projects across the state of Florida. Paul also currently serves as the SunTrax program manager, responsible for the overall development of this new facility, dedicated to advancing innovative transportation solutions. And if you would, please give a warm welcome to Mr. Paul Satchfield.
Thank you. Thanks, Tom. Great to be here. I spend a lot of time in Polk County now, as you might imagine. I make lots of trips to the facility and back. I'm very familiar with our Polk Parkway, which I hope you all travel on. We appreciate that, being the turnpike and the tolls. So with that, I'm going to talk about today SunTrax, give you a little bit of background about connected and automated vehicle technology, and then really deep dive into what we're doing out there, really just a stone's throw from where we are right now. So you're talking about the future of tech, the future of transportation, and this is it. It's automated, it's connected, it's electric, and it's shared. The combustion engine cars, single owner cars that we have today are on, they've been marked. They're on their way out. They probably won't be in our lifetime, but in your children's lifetime, especially if they're in a city, they probably will not own a car, and if they do, it will not be a combustion engine. And the benefits of this are numerous. First is safety. There were 40,000 people killed on the highways and streets of America last year. 90% of all accidents in this country are caused by the driver, not by the road, not by the car, not by the weather, but by the person behind the wheel. Texting, drinking, changing the radio station, not paying attention, whatever it is, it's 90% of the accidents are caused by us. It's estimated when we reach full connectivity, full connected and automated vehicle, that number will be reduced by 90%. So that's 36,000 lives that won't be lost on the roads when we get to this, when this technology reaches maturity. It's going to enhance mobility. We have people that are physically challenged in some way. Maybe they're blind or they can't drive for whatever reason. You have younger people. I know when my kids were growing up, I had 3 kids. They all were going different places at one time. There was one of me. It was hard to get them to where they're going. Well, in the future, you'll have an app on your phone. You'll hit a button, a car is going to come. They'll get in the car and off they'll go. And then they'll do the same to come back. So it's going to enhance mobility as our society. It's going to reduce congestion. Right now, a typical lane on a highway can handle 2,000 cars an hour. At full connected, it will be 6,000 cars an hour. And this is what you're going to be talking about probably at 3 o'clock. Those are the kind of things you need to know. So maybe we won't be building out roads like we're building them 30 or 40 years from now. Maybe we'll be shrinking the roads. Maybe the cars drive in a smaller path, so instead of 12-foot lanes on your road, you have 9-foot lanes on the road. These are all the things that are coming in the future. And then, obviously, once you reduce congestion and you switch to electric, there's going to be some improvement to the environment. The CO2 won't be there. You won't have traffic jams on I-4 sitting there causing, cars idling for hours at a time. There are obstacles, though. The technology is very young. How many heard of the Uber wreck in Arizona in February? All the hands go up. How many heard of the other 600 people that got killed that week in auto wrecks around the country? It's just a fact. Right now, it's a technology that is new. It's exciting. Everybody's involved with it. But when something goes wrong, everybody hears about it, even though you don't hear about all the other things that go wrong with the human drivers. So there's that. Then that leads into public acceptance. Poll after poll right now shows that between 50 and 60% of the people say they'll never ride in an automated vehicle. And I always say to those people, I have news for you. You will ride in one day. Regulatory consistency at the federal level, there is none right now. So you have 50 states kind of trying to feel their way through this. There's going to need to be some regulatory consistency for the technology to move forward. You can't have 50 states with 50 different sets of rules and expect these manufacturers to be able to work in that environment. And then there's some resistance from existing industries. These jobs are going to change when you have automated vehicles. Trucking, for one, that's going to be one of the first places where we think that autonomy will come to is the trucking industry. Well, there's truck drivers that won't have jobs anymore, but that's really not the case. They'll still have their jobs, they're just going to change to different jobs. But again, the most important thing, you see it right at the bottom, is safety. Is when we get to this, we're all going to be safer. So, with that little introduction, let's talk about SunTrax. This is what is being built right up the street right now. You see we have 475 acres. What you see in white there is what is currently under construction. That's a 2¼ mile high speed, and by high speed we mean highway speed, oval. It is 5 lanes wide in the straightaways, two lanes wide in the corners. The straightaways can be operated independently. They're about 1 mile long from cul-de-sac to cul-de-sac. There's 2 little white rectangles there. Those are our tolls buildings. One's for the tolls operations. Those are going to be the guys sitting out there doing their toll testing. And then the second one is a storage building for their equipment. This will be fully lit, full ITS around it, full camera coverage around it. There'll be 4 different toll gantries. And this was the reason why SunTrax started, was we needed a place to test our tolling equipment. So we have 600 plus lane miles of roadway in our system. We have 138 interchanges, thousands and thousands of pieces of toll equipment that need to be tested. Like we all have smartphones. I see them, everybody has smartphones. You have apps on your smartphones. When that app has an update, they don't just push it out and hope it works. There's a lot of testing that goes on before they push it out and hope it works. We do the same thing. We have software updates. We need to make sure that works before we roll it out to our customers. And hardware changes. We have 3 different toll equipment vendors right now, so we needed a place to test our facility to make sure that we remain at the forefront of the toll technology. But with that, when you buy 475 acres and build a 2¼ mile oval, you have a lot of space in the infield. And the question is, what do we do with that space? We said, well, we know what's coming, the connected and automated vehicles. Let's build a facility that those can be tested. Construction is happening. You've probably all seen it. You can see some pictures there. That's a little tunnel that's how you'll get into the infield. The first gantry went up in July. The first toll gantry, I said there'll be 4 of those. And this will be, the oval will be completed in April of next year. Now for the infield. This is really the connected and automated vehicle part of the facility. You see up in the corner our design principles. We wanted varied environments with diverse scenarios and highly reconfigurable. We didn't want to build a lot of stuff permanently into the ground that this year it's great, but 2 years from now it needs to be dug up and replaced with something else. So as I go through this, you'll see where we took this into consideration during our design. And I'll walk you through each of these individual test sections. This is the entranceway. This is the main building. So this is where you'll have your offices, the labs for testing, conference rooms, data center. The facility site operations will be in these two buildings right here. This will be when you first come into the facility. This is a sensor test chamber, and this is an interesting building. We're going to try our best to control the weather. Rain, fog, dust, bugs. We have love bugs. Anybody driven during love bug season and your windshield gets covered? Well, if you've got a bunch of radars and lidars and other sensors on your car, those are going to get covered as well. So it's going to be very diverse. We're also going to try to do lightning. This will also be a place where you can deprive the vehicle of the GPS signal. A lot of these vehicles operate using GPS. We want to see how they operate when they don't have that signal. How do they communicate to each other? Do they still stay in their lanes? And then that's going to be adjacent to what we call a roadway geometry track. This is going to have different vertical and horizontal geometry. These cameras right now are very good. The sensors are very good at straight lines. When you start to get inclines and declines and different radius of corners, it presents a bit of a challenge to them. So we're going to build a test scenario area where they can challenge these sensors. We really want this facility to be a challenge to these cars. We don't, if you make it too easy, nobody's going to come to access and use the facility. We want this to be a challenge for the manufacturers. This is the oval. I already spoke to you about this a little bit. You can see up here we've got truck platoons going on. So you can use this for tolls testing. That will be the primary use, but anybody that wants to go out here and test their vehicles at highway speeds can utilize this facility. I just spoke with a company yesterday who shall remain nameless that was talking about this and actually wanted us to put toll booths on this to see how the cars would negotiate a toll booth. Around the country, a lot of states still have toll booths where you put the change in the basket and off you go. In Florida, we're getting away from that. We're getting to all electronic tolling. But there's enough areas in the country that still need that the gentleman said, hey, could you put a toll booth out here? It never even crossed our minds that that would be something that could be tested. But we have toll booths. We have a whole yard full of them. And we can bring them out here and set them down and have the car go through just like, we'll have it pull up, stop, and go. So I was like, wow, thank you for that idea. This is one of the loop tracks that we'll have here. This one is, you could use it for durability testing, but will be the big key of this, and it doesn't really show in the graphic, is there's going to be different pavement types here. So you'll have your asphalt, your concrete, cobblestone, brick. Two different reasons for those types of the changes. One, just to see how durable the sensors are. Do they vibrate when you're going across the brick? Do they vibrate enough that they don't work? And two is the color change. Nice dark asphalt, nice white concrete. We've been told in the past cars have come up and they've been driving on the nice dark asphalt and they hit the nice white concrete and they don't know what to do because they can't recognize it. It's almost, is it a pothole, is it an object in the road, and the vehicle stops. So we're going to give them a facility where they can test that. This is probably the most interesting part of the facility. The most requested scenario was a pickup drop-off area. This is what you find at the airport, Tampa, Orlando. You have the wash of traffic. You have the cars coming in at 30, 35 miles an hour. They've got to move across 2 or 3 lanes of traffic to get to a spot to drop a pedestrian off and then get back in. Airports are loath to shut down so that CAVs can come in and test. I can imagine somebody making the phone call to Orlando International, say, can you shut your airport down for a couple hours? We want to run a few tests with your arriving passengers. It's not going to happen, but they can do it here. And we can use mannequins to simulate the pedestrians. This is I flew to San Francisco for a conference last month. I got out, I was waiting for my Uber, and I took a picture of what was going on there. And I thought, I turned to the guy I was with, I was like, how is an automated vehicle ever going to deal with this? There's cars everywhere. They're all different angles. It was crazy, but of course, once we get to fully automated, they'll be very nice and orderly. There's a gentleman that I've seen speak a few times. He says, automated vehicles are very polite. They're very polite. They obey all the rules. They don't act like some of us may act. Not me. I'm a good driver. This is the urban area. I talked about flexibility. You see shipping containers right here. We did not want to build buildings or facades. Somebody asked about facades. We wanted to make this flexible. So what we can do here is we can stack these shipping containers up to 90 feet high. And so if some company A comes in and said, we want a canyon, we'll build them a canyon. We'll hang whatever facade they want off the front of the container, be it metal, glass, wood, brick, whatever they need, we're going to create. The next day somebody doesn't need that, it gets torn down and stored, and it's a different scenario. So part of the reason we didn't want to build facades is we have hurricanes in Florida. If you build something like that, it has to be pretty stable, and that leads to money. So we didn't want to invest a lot of money in something that was just a one, it only gave us one scenario. With the shipping containers, we use multiples. We can create whatever scenario you want. And you'll see this, I have a little video that you'll see a fly through. This is a complex suburban intersection. This is actually based on an intersection outside of Denver, Colorado. I don't know who designed this intersection. I don't think I want to know who designed this intersection. I would not want to drive through this intersection. But this is a real world case that these vehicles are going to have to figure out how to negotiate. There's over 160 conflict points in this intersection. So right now, automated vehicles are very good at a four-way stop. They can kind of sense what's around them and know when to go, when not to go. Put 20 or 30 of them in this intersection and see what happens. So it's very challenging. This is what we call the technology test pad. This is about 28 acres of asphalt. And this was the second most requested item when we were doing our fact finding and outreach on this facility. You can do whatever you want out here. You can stripe it out, cone it out, use Jersey barrier to create whatever scenario you need your vehicle to negotiate. But what you can also do is what is called hardware in the loop testing, where you take your vehicle, you put it out here, you start pumping signals into the car so it thinks it's in New York City, in Times Square, and it needs to negotiate a path. So if you're sitting here watching it, you just see a car driving on a pad, and it doesn't look like anything that spectacular until you understand that the car is seeing cars going by, pedestrians, everything else that's going on in any environment, and it is doing it correctly. It's a safer way of doing some testing. Let's see, here's our video. So this is the entranceway. This is coming in underneath the oval. You're going north right now. We've got our entrance buildings. The first building is the conference office building. The building right behind it is the operations building. The third building is the maintenance building. Here you see the sensor chamber. It is right adjacent to our geometry track. You can get a little bit better idea of the undulation that we'll build into the ground back there. This is the garage area. Obviously, if you're going to come out here and use the facility, you need a place to work on your car. So we'll have garages. They'll have everything they need to work on, as well as offices with data connections. The pickup drop-off area, anybody who's been to the airport knows what this is. This is what I call a Faraday cage. It's just another way that we can use to block the signals. This is looking down the urban corridor here, and you can see the shipping containers on the side with some facades on them. And then as the camera spins around, we change the scenario. Here's the urban intersection. Hopefully this is how it will operate once they figure all the technology out. You can see the high-speed oval, a truck platoon going by, so some of the things that we can do out there on the oval. And then this is the hardware and the loop testing on the dynamic pad. This is what the car would be seeing. Obviously, we're not going to go and build skyscrapers out here. So, and then we have there'll be a tower in the middle, an observation tower to come out and people can see what's going on with their vehicles as they're running through their various tests. We're to the point of designing landscaping and signage, so this would be off of Braddock Road. This would be the entrance into the facility. And then in the middle, there'll be a roundabout. We've got the iconic X there in the middle. This is a question people like to know. What's the timeline? I already told you the oval will be open in April of 19. We are currently finishing the design of the infield. That should be wrapped up by the end of this year. Construction of the infield will begin about this time next year, July, August of 19. The infield will be open in spring of 2021. So it is moving forward. We are part of the USDOT's Proving Grounds. We're part of the Central Florida AV Proving Grounds along with Florida Poly. About the end of 2016, the Obama administration issued an RFP for groups to come and try to obtain the designation as a USDOT AV Proving Ground. They received 64 applications. The 10 groups you see here were chosen. We were one of those 10 groups. This is our partnership. It's called the Central Florida AV Partnership. And what we offer, as you can see in that top corner of the slide, is the 3 types of testing that these manufacturers need. They need to simulate their, run their sensors through a simulation. Then they need a controlled environment, and then they want to be able to go out on the open roads. Well, we have Florida Polytech and University of Central Florida as part of our partnership. That's where you can do the simulation testing. You have SunTrax as well as the Kennedy Space Center that has some ability to do the closed course testing. And then in Florida, we have some very, very liberal laws when it comes to AVs right now. You can actually go out and take them on the roads of Florida. So between the Turnpike and I-4, the beach line, this city of Orlando, there are numerous areas where you can then go out and, if you so choose, test on the open roads. Florida is a leader in this. I'm not sure how familiar you are with all of the things that are going on in Florida, but it's not just SunTrax. This is a map of about 16 other projects that are around the state dealing mostly with connected vehicle, but we are a leader in this. We are not a follower. There are some states that are trying to pick up this ball now, but they're about 2 or 3 years behind where they should be. The big test here is going on in Gainesville. They're actually putting a autonomous shuttle that will run a route around the University of Florida, and that should go into operation this month, if I'm remembering correctly. I think they did their testing last month, and now the students are coming back. That will actually be in operation. So this is a slide I put in because the first question I always get was, when's it coming? When is this going to be here? So here's a few quotes with some different ideas. And then a few more quotes with a few more different ideas. And then I stole this chart from somebody else's presentation I saw because I thought this is probably the best way of looking at this. You're probably talking about 40 years before we get to fully connected automated vehicles. You will see improvements every year. When you watch your TV now and you see car commercials, what are they advertising? They're advertising adaptive cruise control. They're advertising smart city brake assist. They're advertising lane keep assist. Nissan Rogue, I saw an ad for that's got the ability when you're in stop and go traffic to hit a button and the car will drive itself up to 25 miles an hour while you're going through that stop and go traffic. When I grew up, it was all horsepower. And then in the late 80s, it was all gas mileage. Well, now it's all automated vehicle. And so that's a good way to say that you can see that this stuff is coming. It's just not going to be here tomorrow. And I'm sure at 3 o'clock, Ben will get into that a little bit more. So with that, I am done with my presentation and am willing to answer any questions you may have. Yes, sir.
We've seen these YouTube videos where you have an intersection and the cars don't stop; they just avoid each other. Is that possible?
Yep, that is the projection. When you get to fully connected vehicles, when the cars are talking to each other, they will slow down or speed up whatever they need to do so that they avoid each other during those intersections. So yeah, 2060 you might not see, right out here at Berkeley to pull in here, you had a traffic signal. that might not be there anymore. The cars will just be talking to each other. They'll know how fast they're going. They'll know where they need to go and how fast they need to go to get to where they're going without hitting each other.
So how do they deal with pedestrians?
There'll be sensors. I mean, you know, you're talking 40 years out. My hope would that be you'd have pedestrian walkways over it so that they wouldn't have to mix with traffic. But I really can't give you a solid answer on that.
Will the connected vehicles be able to tell the difference between a connected vehicle and an unconnected vehicle?
That's a great question, because that's the wash. Right now, you know, there's very few automated vehicles on the road right now. And you're eventually going to get to that point where they will come to be on the road. There's virtually every manufacturer is working on an automated vehicle right now. At some point, there's going to be enough of them on the road to cause a problem, because you're going to have automated vehicles that are very polite, like I said before, that follow all of the rules of the road, while people like us are on the roads saying, I need to get someplace, you're in my way. And the question for planners is how we're going to deal with that. Facilities like the Turnpike especially, and other freeways, are a little bit better adapted. We used to have HOV lanes, high occupancy vehicle lanes. Now we're separating traffic with express lanes and general purpose lanes. So the guess is on the highways what you'll have is a lane that is dedicated to automated vehicles. And then so if you have, say, 4 lanes, you'll have 1 automated, 3 human. And then as the automated vehicle penetration increases, you 2 and 2, 3 and 1, and it will just slowly reverse itself. But it's going to be interesting in those first few years.
So in the future, as we move away from combustion engines and the majority of the vehicles on the road become electric vehicles, the fuel tax that the Florida Department of Revenue receives in revenue is going to be in a decline.
Yep.
So in order to make up for that lost revenue stream, there has to be an alternative form of tolling or to pay for the roads to generate this. And as far as what thought has been put into these alternative forms of tolling, and will they be testing that at SunTrax?
Well, as far as the revenue goes, the leading contender, I guess, that I've read most about is vehicle miles travel tax. So instead of having being a tax on each gallon of gas you put in the car, the tax would be based on how many miles that car drives, and that's where you'll make up that revenue shortfall as the gas tax decreases. They're going to try to do the vehicle miles travel tax.
So you would have an account that you would put money into? And
how it works, I'm not sure, but yeah, whether there's an account, whether it's you pay it monthly, whether it's a yearly, whether it's per trip, I don't know, you know. As you get to a shared vehicle and you don't own the vehicle, it will probably be wrapped into the price that they're charging to get you from point A to point B, you know. It'll be one of the, you know, along with the wear and tear and the cost of the electricity and the cost to operate the car.
It'll be part of, they say everything's moving towards mobility as a service. You'll have a subscription for your mobility. So the tax would be part of that.
Exactly.
Your graph showing kind of the 40-year adoption of technology is pretty interesting. But it calls to mind, for me, what's the role of local, state, federal, or even international government cooperation on this? And how does that either speed up or slow down this kind of adoption of technology? And I ask this because, as Keith reminded me, I'll put it on him a few minutes ago, toll interoperability was supposed to be in place 2 years ago, I believe, 2016. So, like, Florida and Georgia can't even talk to each other around tolling, or maybe it's Virginia, whatever it is. If we can't figure out how to build a credit card, how quickly can we get the government to align behind this?
That's a great question. It's a very philosophical question. I can't give you an answer of saying, I've got a plan to do that.
Are there any projections or intellectual academic thinking about this?
Well, the current,
or are we not there yet?
There is, and the current administration's on the federal level, their policy is hands off. We're going to let the technology mature more before we get involved in it. But at some point, the federal government's going to have to get involved in it, or we're going to have, you know, it's going to be the Wild West.
We'll have to do it with Canada, Mexico.
Yeah,
other-
well, exactly, and
So
well, I'm not sure how much we're headed towards this, but how we get there is still a little bit uncharted. And the political side could be more dicey than the actual technology side. You know, we've got a bunch of smart people working on the technology side, and you know, politicians sometimes, you know,
it's great stuff. Everybody has their interest.
since we're on camera, I won't, you know, that's where I have to stop with that.
Paul, in the future, after SunTrax opens, will there be an opportunity for the public to tour for education or something like that?
We will have scheduled tours, yes. It will not be, this facility is not open to the public. You can't just drive out there and take your car out on the track. That's not how it's going to operate. That would be bad. But we'll work in concert with, you know, an organization like this. If somebody needs to see wants a tour, we will definitely get them out there and get tours going.
Thank you.
On the graph, I did see commercial vehicles and a couple of mass transit buses. Did they also include school buses? Have any of the school bus companies contacted you about?
We have not been in contact with school buses, but I don't know why that would really be any different than any other automated vehicle, to be quite honest with you. You might have to have a monitor on the school bus to keep the kids in check. I remember how I acted on the school bus. But you might not need the driver of the bus. There again, as I talked about very early, how you get resistance from existing industry. That bus driver might not be driving the bus, but you're still going to need somebody to kind of make sure the kids aren't going crazy on the bus. I got all kinds of time. Way in the back.
How many?
Oh, no, way in the back.
With Florida Polytech?
I didn't catch
Can
it.
you tell me a little bit more about your partnership with Florida Polytech?
Sure. Florida Poly, obviously, they've got, they're located 2 miles from our facility. We're going to work in concert with them. They're going to kind of be the research arm of SunTrax. So they will be out there hopefully advancing that technology forward. We can see them assisting some of the users. The great thing about this technology is it's not just being driven by big mega companies. There are mom and pops working on this that may not have the staffing to say, you know what, man, if I had 5 engineers, I could really push this forward, but I can't afford 5 engineers. Well, maybe they work with Poly and help use the assets from Florida Poly to help move that forward. So that's, they will do the research. I think you have.
How many different manufacturers, auto manufacturers are already on board for testing?
At this point in time, we have not signed up anybody on board because we truly don't have anything for them to use yet. We're still under construction. We have spoken to dozens, I would think is a good way of putting it, between the Audis and the Cadillacs of the world and tier 1 providers. There's different levels of people and some tier 2 providers. There is a lot of interest in this facility. I don't think we're going to have a problem getting people to come out here and use it.
How's it being funded?
The Turnpike is paying for this. The oval is obviously already in construction and almost finished. That was a $42.5 million project. We are funding the infield as well. We've got some cost estimates. The design is still evolving, so we don't have a final price tag yet, but it will be another large investment by the Turnpike. I see one.
Yeah, and actually, I have 2 questions. One is kind of like personal curiosity. The other one's kind of a selfish question. And well, not selfish, it's a work-related question, but I'll go with the curiosity first. I was just curious, as far as the SunTrax facility and the different testing that might go on at the facility, is it envisioned that there'd be a certain portion that would be related to like safety and security, as far as like whether or not somebody can hijack a vehicle? Because I mean, you talk about people's fears. That's the type of thing that's going to get the most media attention.
Sure. Well, it's an interesting question. When we go to conferences, one of the main topics, a lot of the conference will be dedicated to hacking, because that's a question. Somebody hacked a Jeep. I don't know, it's about 2 or 3 years ago, some kids had a Jeep and they figured out a way to hack into it and drive it remotely. your car has so many entry points. You know, the little tire sensors on your car that says, that's a little cell phone transmitter. And you can hack into a car through the tire sensor. I just learned that not too long ago. So it's a big concern. And yes, we would hope that if they want to do that kind of testing, SunTrax is a place where you can go out there. And we thought about hosting hackathons where you bring a vehicle out there and say, all right, figure out how to hack it. So it's a very big topic related to this technology, rightfully so.
And the second question is more related to some of the transportation planning we do at work, and you're talking about a 40-year period where we might have adoption of autonomous vehicles, and that sounds like a long time. But when we talk about project design for a new highway or highway improvement, you really have a 30-year design life. So I guess my question is, Florida's Turnpike Enterprise, when you're looking at the different toll facilities that you have around the state, is the Turnpike starting to kind of change or modify their planning process to kind of look at what your needs will be based on connected and autonomous vehicles being part of the future reality?
We are looking at that. I don't think we've changed any of our plans yet based on that, but it is something our planning group is now taking into consideration when they're looking at new projects. You have to. I wish we knew when the adoption was coming. When you get to, it would make our lives a lot easier. But no, it is something that it has to be taken into consideration, because if you do get to a fully connected vehicle, and again, you don't need the footprint of the road, or it changes a traffic pattern, you need to know that.
Is the Florida Turnpike, are you a division of the FDOT or
Yes.
a separate entity?
We're the tolling division of the Florida Department of Transportation.
Two quick questions. Is the total cost of the project still going to be $90 million, or is it more? And also, when do you expect self-driving cars to take over the roads?
The total cost of the oval and the infield will be more than $90 million based on our best guesses as we get through our design of the infield. And as far as when do you want to see one car on the road, or when do you think we'll see lots of automated vehicles? You're probably talking 20, 30 years out.
And how much more than $90 million?
Our best guess at the infield right now, our best estimate is about $100 million for the infield.
Just the infield?
Just the infield.
And the oval is 42.5?
42 and a half, yeah.
100 million?
Yes. It's a substantial investment. But when you save, if you can save 36,000 lives a year, how much is that? How do you put a price on somebody's life?
This is fascinating, and it probably brings up so many more questions in people's minds. The question that I have is, given that Florida is so flat and you're testing these vehicles for use around the country, what about tunnels? What about mountains? And are we in partnership with any of the other test facilities in some of the other areas around the country?
Well, all of the designated proving grounds are kind of work together to share information. We won't share test data because that's private to the company that's doing the testing, but we will work with them to come up with different tests or unique tests to try to push the technology forward. As far as how we're going to simulate that, we just had a meeting yesterday to try to figure out how to build a tunnel without building a tunnel. And we've come up with perhaps using some sort of metallic curtain that you could just pull out and create, because the goal of the tunnel would be to block the signals. So we have the test chamber that can do that, but we're also trying to determine if we could just build a fabric covering that could be put up or taken down as needed to simulate that as well.
Thank you.
I have two questions. One more or less is a curiosity question. With about 4 years from now, we're looking at autonomous vehicles. We have tens of millions of cars that are on the road now. What will happen to those cars?
Well, the average life cycle, length of ownership for a car is 11 years. So I think what you'll see is as people start to switch out those cars, will just be recycled. They'll go someplace and we'll scrap them and take the metal out and salvage what we can salvage, and it will just eventually roll into automated.
And the other question is, with autonomous vehicles, are you also looking at, with the Turnpike and all the other locations throughout the country, with the infrastructure, roads, signalization, is that also being taken into, are you also looking at providing that information to talk to the vehicle?
Yeah, well, that's a lot of what, when I showed the map of the stuff that's going around Florida right now, it's called signal phasing and timing. And yeah, you can hang sensors on that equipment that transmits to the vehicle saying, you know what, the red cycle is got 2 minutes left, or what have you, and the cars will understand that and figure out what they need to do to respond to that. So that is another A, technology that's emerging, and B, a technology that we can test at SunTrax.
I didn't pick up on what you'll be doing with all of these shipping containers. What will be their role?
They're going to be our buildings. So we will stack them up to create an environment, say a downtown environment where you have skyscrapers. We can't go that high, but we think we can go high enough that it achieves the goal of blocking the signals from the cars.
Will there be functions inside of the shipping containers?
No, we're just going to stack them up.
Okay.
Stack them up.
Like a movie lot.
Yeah, like Lego blocks, really. They're just big Lego blocks.
With private industry coming in and testing, obviously they'll be paying for the service.
Yeah.
Do y'all have any estimate of what you think that will cover as far as overhead for the operation, things like that?
We do, based on some conversations we've had with operators. We're gonna have a firm come in to operate this facility for us. That advertisement is going out the end of next week. We should have them on board by December, and one of their roles is going to be to determine that fee schedule and what we can bring in for revenue. But we've had some discussions with some of them when they've been coming in doing some marketing with us. We think that this will easily cover the cost of operations, maintenance of the facility, as well perhaps generate some money that we can then put back into it to build different sectors and make improvements as needed.